snow and cold. It's a chilling, deadly weather combination.
Go, 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 go!
These are the stories from people who work in extreme weather.
We just lost a big window.
It was just like a bomb went off.
And nobody is coming to save you.
And the storms they'll never forget.
Wham! Crack! Bang! Bang! Bang!
Holy we're going to die.
Plus, the how and why behind the world's worst weather.
Mother Nature is one mother.
Of all the weather Mother Nature can dish out, our deadliest enemy is cold. From churning blizzards to crippling ice storms and biting frostbite, cold is a killer. And it's hitting the globe in more unpredictable ways than ever before. And it all starts here, at the top of the world, the Arctic. A land gripped permanently by ice, greater in size than India and China combined. And the source of all cold weather in the northern hemisphere. The air directly above the Arctic surface is always freezing. Above it, warmer air sinks down, pushing the colder surface air south. These polar winds gain speed as they travel south to create our wild winters.
And what we're talking about is big Arctic air masses coming down. And when they're driven southward very quickly, this can be behind a rapidly moving cold front. We can often see temperatures drop very drastically.
Fast enough to make scientists' heads spin. For those who work outside in brutal winter weather, it can be a matter of life and death. For 26 years, Michael McLean has braved some of the toughest weather imaginable, stringing communication cables 30 feet in the air.
I spend my entire life working in extreme weathers up on top of hydro poles. Weather can affect my job in many ways. It can lead to fatigue, it can lead to cold, it can lead to exhaustion, sweat, you can get dehydrated, you can get hypothermia. I mean, weather, it plays an integral part in what we do because we're outside all day. And on this day, I saw extreme weather that I will never forget. I absolutely felt I was going to freeze to death on that pole that day.
February 2005. It's early morning in Ontario, Canada. Michael receives an urgent call from work. Freezing rain and ice has downed a steel cable system on a busy highway, putting lives at risk.
It was an emergency call because the line is now down over top of the road, which is now closing the road, so it needs to be fixed.
Yeah, be out there in a couple hours, buddy. No worries. Okay, no worries.
It's a deadly disaster waiting to happen. Until the cables are removed and restrung, the icy highway with an obstacle on it has the ingredients for a deadly crash. He's forced to brave the cold to solve the problem. The second he steps outside, Michael is struck by how quickly the temperature has plummeted.
With the cold front moving in, expect bitter cold temperatures north of the city, and be sure to take necessary extreme cold precautions.
A cold front. A mass of cold, dry air has blown in from the north and fast. Depending on how fast it moves, a cold front can cause a sudden drop in temperature, as much as 50 degrees or more. Michael has worked on hundreds of emergency calls, but on the 2-hour drive north, he realizes this one's not like any of the others.
The weather reports are saying it's just hostile out, and exposure over 5 minutes could lead to frostbite. And what they're saying, due to wind chill, it's feeling more like 50 below to 70 below outside.
In addition to the fast-moving cold front, winds blowing off a nearby lake intensify the wind chill, making the weather even harsher.
Wind chill is the combination of both the temperature and the wind. It implies what it feels like outside, and it's again this idea of the wind scouring heat from the body. The body has to work harder to maintain your core temperature.
With a wind chill of -50, people are warned to stay inside, protected from the piercing cold. But Michael has no choice.
As soon as I arrive on site, instantaneously, you can see that the road is closed. The line is literally laying on the road. So upon arriving on site, I step outside of the truck, and instantly I'm just blasted with the cold. When I left to go up to the emergency, it was about 14 below. And as I arrived on site, it was about 58 below with the wind chill factor.
In just 2 hours, the cold front has moved so fast, the temperatures have plunged by more than 40 degrees.
Temperature in this sort of extreme cold, one should never be out for longer than 5 minutes at a time. But I had to stay out to open the road. That's my job.
It's only been 2 minutes, and Michael is already losing feeling in his feet. But the job has to get done.
I'm instantly thinking, okay, this is a 2-suit job. I've got 2 one-piece snowsuits. They're rated for 25 below. So my thought is put them both on. That's a double up. And now it should be rated for 50 below. Instantly, I cut the line in the middle of the road and I pull it off the road so that we can at least have the road open. So at this point, I know I have to climb the hydro poles to make the repair.
And his experience tells him that this job will take at least 30 minutes.
Someone working on a pole, highly exposed to bitterly cold wind chills, say -50 or colder, obviously in a very, very dangerous situation. When we talk about wind chill, being exposed is allowing the wind the full force on your body, scouring heat from your body, making it more difficult for your core temperature to be maintained.
I have never experienced this type of a temperature drop, nor have I ever been forced into an environment where I had to work in that temperature.
As heat goes up, the icy temperature goes down.
The faster I move, the more I'm exposed because now I'm coming off of the ground level and now I'm just being belted with this wind. It was never going to come to an end because every second was bitter. I've climbed thousands of poles in my career, and I absolutely thought I was never getting off this pole.
Extreme cold. It's nature's deadliest element. And when it moves in fast, it's some of the most dangerous weather on the planet. It's a winter's day in Canada. A polar wind screams south, causing temperatures to drop to a bone-snapping 40 degrees in just 2 hours. To make matters worse, cold air blowing off a nearby lake creates a wind chill that makes it feel like -60 degrees Fahrenheit. In these Arctic temperatures, communications lineman Michael McLean is 30 feet up. It feels like 60 below. It's an emergency. He needs to replace a cable line.
I'm about 10 steps up the pole where I'm no longer feeling my feet, really. It's just bitter cold. It rattles your bones as you walk up with every step.
He attempts to fasten a new line to the pole, desperately hoping his drill doesn't seize up.
It feels like your lungs have like crystallized air inside them.
Exposure in this for more than 5 minutes can lead to frostbite. Michael's been on the pole for 20 minutes.
Frostbite is basically that idea of the heart working to keep the core warm at the expense of the extremities. And so as the circulation starts to cut off from fingers and toes, we're not getting the blood flow anymore, oxygen to those things. And then the concern is if that frostbite is extensive enough, we may in fact have to amputate the fingers and toes.
It's your extremities that are suffering. Your fingers are so cold that you're doing bits of jobs where you tighten one nut till it's tightened. You're doing part of the tightening, and then you're sticking your fingers inside the outer snowsuit into the armpits. And it's a damned if you do and damned if you don't. The more warmth you take for your fingers, the longer you stand on the pole. You want to keep working, but you don't want to lose your fingers in the process. All I could think about is getting back there in my truck.
Michael finally secures the line to the first pole, and guess what? He now has to do it all over again.
So after 30 minutes in the air, I get to come down into my truck and I get to warm my body. Stay there just enough to get them blood flowing back in your extremities. The daunting thing is now knowing I have to go to the other side of the street to do it all over again. I am completely fatigued at this point. I'm mentally exhausted, I'm physically exhausted, and my body's feeling the effects of the weather that's just been blistering through me. In your fingertips, you feel like there's 1,000 bees trying to sting their way out. Like as you touch them, you can feel the vibrations through your hand, through the bones. It's that cold, really. As you're pushing through and you want to quit, and I felt that moment, and I had that moment, and I'm not allowed to quit.
Oh, okay. We got this.
And I'm screaming as loud as I can just at the world. Really, I'm screaming at myself. You got this. Take it. Own it.
The cold front screamed in so quickly, it's not giving him a break. Just as he fixes the second cable, something else goes wrong. The tear duct in his right eye freezes open, blinding him in a flood of tears that freeze to his face.
To this day, I have the effects of that. I can't sustain any sort of a wind or any sort of flash or cold weather on my eyes. I tear. My eyes just run nonstop.
I think that's an interesting thing.
This one piece will make 52 layers.
Watch on mobile devices or the big screen. All for free. No subscription required.
Job done. Michael makes his way down the pole, one agonizing frozen step after another.
I take off the outer snowsuit, and it was so frozen from my body's own perspiration that it literally stood like a store mannequin beside my truck as I climbed out of it, like a spaceman suit. It was literally standing there.
Working in extreme cold, as you want to have those breaks to let the body recover somewhat. If you stay out there for prolonged periods of time, you're increasing the risk of damage in those cold temperatures. So warming up on a regular basis certainly is recommended.
I'd say that this experience has brought two things to my experience in my job. One is it could be the middle of summer and I still have a snowsuit in my truck. And secondly, that Mother Nature is a real powerful thing. Like it'll take and it'll just do what it wants to you. You're pretty small and insignificant, and you recognize that when you experience a situation like this. I'm certainly thankful that on that cold day I didn't lose a limb. I'm not missing toes, I'm not missing fingers. I'm thankful that I was able to persevere and push myself through it and find that strength to get the job done. It brings strength of character, but would I line up to do it again? Not likely, not likely.
Severe cold is the most dangerous weather element on the planet. When a cold front moves in fast, high winds and frigid temperatures can bring us to our knees. When extreme snow strikes quickly, it's smothering, blinding, and can stop you dead in your tracks. Gerald Scottapole has been a pilot for 30 years and trains other pilots to deal with emergency situations.
All over the world, I've seen incredible storms all over the place, in the tropics, in the Arctic, but the one that really stands out in my mind is in the Antarctic in a blizzard. I can barely see the engine that's only 3 feet from me in the blizzard. This is the weather event I will never forget.
All right, dispatch, this is Gerald here. We're in some pretty bad weather.
Antarctica is the coldest, windiest, and driest continent on Earth. Temperatures plunge below -100 degrees. Winds rage at more than 125 miles an hour. It's the worst place on Earth to be trapped in extreme weather. There's no one around to help you. Although it's in tune with snow and ice, Antarctica actually receives 1/10 of the snow of a city like Boston or New York. It's a desert, and the last place you'd expect to be caught in a killer snowstorm.
In the late fall of 1996, I was flying in the Antarctica. I was flying a Twin Otter aircraft on skis based out of a place called Patriot Hills in the Antarctica. We were flying adventures to the South Pole. Flying in the Antarctic can be beautiful, and it can be very challenging. If you don't know what you're doing, it can be very dangerous. You have things to deal with, such as mountainous terrain, high altitudes, extreme temperatures.
Gerald and his engineer load their plane. Passengers board. And they take off into the Antarctic sky.
The weather at the time was nice, clear, sunny. But in those years, we didn't have a lot of good weather reporting, especially where we were at. We were quite remote, and we kind of worked on our own. So we really had a procedure where if it's sunny, we go.
Before they can make the 3.5-hour flight back to base, they need to refuel.
The plan was to fuel up and then return back to base camp.
He reads the sky and checks the instruments on the aircraft. No sign of snow or dangerous weather. Snowstorms are so rare in the Antarctic, it's not even a concern. It's a 1-hour flight to the fueling station.
We're flying along to the fuel cache, and we're getting very close, but we can see basically a dark shadow coming across the ice and the snow, and it almost looked like a dark gray wall coming at us.
Suddenly, a low-pressure system moves in, allowing air to rise into the atmosphere, where it cools, condenses, and creates a furious snowstorm.
Unbeknownst to us, this storm was coming probably in excess of 100 kilometers per hour towards us. It actually caught us by surprise.
In terms of a pilot flying through a snowstorm, this is a situation where they can easily become disoriented. If there's terrain around, mountains and things of that nature, again, a lot of danger involved.
Gerald has no choice but to try and land the plane in the storm.
All right, dispatch, this is Gerald here. We're in some pretty bad weather.
If I would have remained in the air, the only thing that we could have done was try to get turned around with the storm and try and outrun it. But the problem is you're limited to the amount of fuel you have, and there's no support around there.
He prepares for an emergency landing and checks his GPS to ensure he doesn't collide with the fuel drums below, setting off a deadly explosion.
As we were coming down into the storm, we're just holding, and we know on our radar altimeter they were going to be getting closer, because we can see 50 feet, 40 feet, 30 feet, 20 feet, 10 feet, and you're just sitting there and you're like, okay, I hope I can feel pretty quick.
It's a white-knuckle descent. But Gerald expertly lands the plane.
It was kind of like one of those get out and kiss the ground moments. You were so happy to be on the ground rather than being flying in the air in this epic storm.
They're safe, or so they thought.
Once we landed and touched down, it was basically a whiteout. And I looked down on our GPS, and we're about approximately a quarter of a mile from our fuel cache. So I thought, okay, I'm going to taxi close to where it is. And I'm taxiing what I think along, because the aircraft is shaking so much, and we just see whiteout snow. And I tell the engineer that's with me, you know, we can't see anything, it's not safe, so let's just stop. That's when we both looked down and realized we weren't moving. The blizzard and the storm was shaking the aircraft so hard, I actually felt like I was taxiing over top of the snowdrifts. But at that point in time, I'm like, well, I guess we're shutting it down and we're spending however long. We don't know how long this storm's gonna last. We don't know how big it is. We don't have any weather reporting.
Yeah, dispatch, this is Gerald. It looks like we're gonna have to ride out the storm here.
So we call on our HF radio to let our base camp know that we're down, we're safe on the ground. Then that's where everything started to get interesting, because what do you do in that extreme of blizzard?
Any blizzard is potentially dangerous if people are going outside in those situations, certainly the ones that last longer. But some of these blizzards can go on for a number of hours.
It's a surprise attack. The blizzard came out of nowhere. The team can't fly until it blows over. But hundreds of miles from help, they are not prepared for a long stay in the cold. The big question, how long will they be trapped in the snow? When extreme winter weather strikes out of nowhere, it can ground flights and bring air travel to a standstill. When it strikes in Antarctica, the coldest, windiest continent on Earth, consequences can be fatal. Adventure pilot Gerald Scottapole, his crew, and passengers are trapped in a blizzard on the ground in a remote Antarctic ice field, hundreds of miles from their base camp. Snowstorms are extremely rare in the Antarctic. They expect the squall to blow over within a couple of hours.
I can barely see the engine that's only 3 feet from me in the blizzard. At that point, it was protocol. If you didn't know how bad the storm was going to be, you would have to go dig what's called a dead man in.
The problem is, they have to go outside in the storm to do it.
Even trying to get the doors open was difficult. So we got the doors open, we both get out, and you had to struggle to walk. The wind was so strong. We got to the front of the aircraft, and now you're starting to dig down into the hard snow, which normally wouldn't be a big deal, but when the wind is blowing that strong, a lot of the snow that you're picking up is disappearing. And you still need this snow in order to pack down on your dead man. What a dead man is basically what we used is a aluminum plate with a cable on it, and you would dig it down into the snow approximately 4 feet, and then run the cable out and attach it to an attach point on the front of the aircraft. And what that would do is prevent, in extreme weather, the airplane actually flipping over in the wind. Because especially in the Antarctic, you can get those high winds that would flip an aircraft over. It has happened before. The dead man acts as an anchor, because if an airplane flips over onto its back and you're inside of it, you're going for a ride. Probably took us 15, 20 minutes to get this thing dug in, packed down, and stable. Got it tied to the aircraft. That was step one. The next step is to get your engine tents on, because in these storms, your engines can pack right full of snow. So that was a bit of an issue, because in order to put the engine tents in a Twin Otter, somebody has to go up onto the wing. Now you're on top of an airplane in this blizzard trying to get the engine tents on. We got it on what we call the number 2 engine on the right-hand side, And the storm picked up so severe, we decided at that point in time it wasn't even safe to try and go up on a wing. We didn't know how long the storm was going to go, so we elected, we've got one on. That'll help keep that engine from being compacted with snow. That really helped save us at that point.
Hours go by. The situation goes from bad to worse. Like a sandstorm in the desert, 200-mile-an-hour winds whip up snow from the ground and blast it at the plane.
The storm was picking up in severity. The analogy would be if you had your airplane plunked inside of a snow globe and somebody give it a big shake. That's what it felt like, only the shaking didn't stop. We were just more or less in survival mode, waiting out the storm.
What they hoped would be just a couple of hours has turned into a day.
Take that, because we're gonna get cold, so have that there.
Exhausted, they try to sleep, but it's not easy.
All of a sudden, we would start to hear kind of a creaking, cracking. What was happening as the storm picked up in intensity is the aircraft was actually starting to lift and try to fly. And suddenly, it feels like the whole airplane is going to start flying. We're starting to feel the cracking of the skis breaking loose from where it's frozen onto the snow. At that point in time, you're like, please, dead man, make sure that you hold the aircraft. We had no heat. We had no water with us, so what we would have to do is we would have to get snow from outside to melt, and that was our source of water. The only thing that we had to cook for all four of us was just a small little single burner flame, and we had to be very, very careful because it used naphtha, which is a highly flammable liquid. We couldn't go outside because the wind would take it and it would be gone. And when we dug into our survival gear, we realized the only thing we had was about a 20-pound bag of rolled oats. It was a bit of a rodeo, I guess, if you will, to try and hold this stove on the floor of the aircraft stable, put the snow in it, melt it, and then try and cook our rolled oats. As time progressed, there's a lot of things that are going through your mind.
Yeah, it's coming down pretty hard, guys. I think we're gonna be here. We're gonna be here a while, I think.
Now you're like, okay, should we start rationing our food? Sometimes these storms can last a week or more. What goes through your mind is nobody can come to you.
The plane bounces, shakes, and rattles as hurricane-level winds hammer the plane with the blowing snow.
Yeah, looks like it's lightening up a little bit. Nice.
Finally, after 36 grueling hours, there's a lull in the storm.
And it finally started to get down to the point where we could get out and assess what the aircraft was like.
Well, we head outside and see if we can get the engines uncovered, yeah? Sure. Give it a shot, you never know.
Once we got out of the aircraft, initially everything looked like it weathered the storm quite well. Our engine tent was still on, our anchor had held well, we weren't buried.
Gerald holds his breath as he attempts to start the plane. After 36 hours in a blizzard, the engine miraculously revs up. Cold, tired, and hungry, they're finally able to escape the ice field and fly back to base camp.
When I look back, the reason this weather event really stands out is normally if you're flying and you go to a place, you're going to a runway. And you get there, if the weather's not good enough to land, you just turn and go to your alternate. It's fine. When we were flying in the Antarctic, we never had that support. We didn't know what the weather was going to be. We didn't know that the weather was going to come in that quickly. And I've never been trapped in an airplane for 36 hours in my life. We were so remote. It was us. There was nobody else.
Despite his training, Gerald was at the mercy of Mother Nature.
The weather was there, we couldn't change it, and we couldn't go anywhere, and we were trapped. The end result was everyone was safe and the mission was accomplished. That was the main thing. And that was the day the weather changed my life.
Trapped in a blizzard, exposed to biting cold extreme winter weather can be a killer, especially if you're caught in both with no way out. The Beartooth Mountains are located in northwest Wyoming, with a height reaching 12,807 feet. During the winter months, this area can reach as low as 10 degrees Fahrenheit, with the constant Wyoming winds making it so much colder. The area received an average of 45 inches of snow. The average U.S. city gets 26 inches of snow a year. The only road that travels through this mountain range is US 296. It's not uncommon in the winter to find travelers stranded in their cars on this stretch of road. Snowplow operator Joe Klein lives in Cody, Wyoming, at the base of Beartooth Mountain. Each year, he spends 200 hours plowing the snow on the mountain highway.
It really kicked in. We had 70-mile-an-hour winds.
Are you serious?
And it was 70 below.
Unbelievable.
And then I got stuck. How many snowstorms have I seen? Dozens. Dozens of snowstorms, yeah. You can leave the house and it'd be doing nothing, and you get out there and you just battle all day. The road is called 296. It's 46 miles long, and it's about 18 miles to the summit. And the summit's about 9,200 feet, I believe. About every mile up, it gets a little bit colder, all the way to the top. If it's windy and there's a lot of snow on the face of the mountain, that's almost 99% guarantee it's gonna be a long day. The safety of a job is when we gotta go up the mountain in the middle of the night. There isn't nobody else around, and you can get caught. It's dark, you get in whiteout conditions, and all of a sudden you're stuck. As a snowplow driver, I see all road conditions, big drifts, heavy accumulation, wind, cold, but that day everything got different. It was a bad day.
Well, one of the reasons in terms of why we have so much snow on mountains is where we're located on that mountain range with respect to the wind flow. One of the things that we look for in terms of the generation of snow is rising motion in the atmosphere. If you have air hitting a mountain terrain being forced to rise, that's one of the factors that we look for to make that snow occur. So the windward side of the mountain where that wind is blowing up the mountain, often a favorite area for significant snowfalls as well. The higher the mountain, the potential for those temperatures to drop below freezing as that air rises. Certainly in the early part of the winter, while it still may be above freezing near the ground, as that air rises up the mountain, it's going to encounter colder air, more chance then of the snow forming.
Lee!
Joe? What's the weather like out there?
Oh, it's terrible.
December 2016. Joe returns home after finishing his plow shift on the mountain. Little did he know that his day was not finishing, it was just starting.
Yeah, I worked from 7:30 till 4 that day. Went home, had dinner. We knew it looked like a storm brewing for the evening, but nothing out of the ordinary. It kind of always looks that way when you look at the top of the mountain, you know. But about 8:30.
Hello.
Got a phone call from TMC.
Yeah, I just finished in.
TMC is traffic managed control. Said there was someone stuck on the mountain, needed assistance.
And you can't find anybody else tonight? I mean, I just got home. I've been out all day.
If they call 911, they'll get a hold of the highway patrol, and the highway patrol will tell TMC that they need someone out, and TMC will call us. People get stuck on the mountain a lot, and it's mostly in the afternoon and evenings, coming back if the weather sets in, and it can be a lot of trouble. When I got the phone call, I thought that, which they probably were, tourists coming out, and they got stuck in a drift about 3/4 of the way up the summit. We're a snowplow driver. We can clear them a path. That's about all we can do. If they need assistance with towing or something, we can call in on the radio and have tow trucks come and help them get out. Or if they need the highway patrol, we get the highway patrol. Well, at home, it was just a little breezy at home. I had no idea it was snowing like that out on the mountain, you know. But you never do until you get there. Well, I just threw on my plain work clothes, you know. We carry a coveralls and winter things in our truck.
Oh, wait a minute, hon. Here's some water.
Oh, thank you very much.
So I went out. I told the wife I'd probably be back in like 3 hours. It shouldn't take too long.
Joe heads out and heads up the mountain. This was not the first time Joe received a call like this. Drivers stuck in the mountain road are a normal occurrence.
Well, when I was making my way out there, I talked to TMC on the radio and tried to get an exact location where they were, and they give me a milepost 29. So I figured, well, they're close to the top. So I was working my way up, and it was snowing, and conditions were getting worse rapidly as I worked my way up. About 18 miles to the base of the mountain. We got our normal drift areas, and it was starting to drift in. Well, it ain't too bad yet. I'll make it to them, you know. But the closer I got to them, the worse it got. And when I got a few miles from them, it really kicked in. We had 70-mile-an-hour winds that night, and it was 70 below, they were saying on the radio. So I thought, well, I gotta get to them, you know, not knowing what kind of trouble they were in.
Yeah, dispatch, I'm just coming up on these people to my left right now. I'm gonna pull over and assist. Copy?
And I found them on the backside of a drift. They were just sitting there. And when I got up to them, the snow and stuff was blowing so bad.
Snow continues to fall heavily on the region and will continue throughout the night. Joe needs to get these stranded people off this mountain quickly before the weather and the snow get any worse.
Just opened a window and he stuck his head out, and I just motioned for him to go down my tracks, you know. Work the drifts out of the way so they could have a path, you know. They were sitting here and I got them all clean, got them an area clean to get out of where they were and the way they went. But it was closing in fast behind me. I was worried that they'd get stuck in front of me going back down, and I couldn't get down, but that wasn't my trouble that night.
With the stranded passengers making their way down the mountain, it's now time for Joe to turn around and head back home.
I had to go like a mile farther to get a spot to turn around because it's just a narrow road. And the higher I got, the worse it was. It's so deep, and I couldn't. Got about halfway turned around, and I got stuck, and I couldn't move. So it's about 9:45 in the evening at this time when I realized I was stuck. Tried to back up a little bit. I maybe got a little bit. So it dawned on me, you know, this is stupid. If I get hurt here, I know there's no one gonna get near me because I'll freeze to death. It was that cold, and, you know, I just got buried in snow.
December 2016. A massive snowstorm, blowing winds, and snowdrifts on the Beartooth Mountains of Wyoming have stranded snowplow operator Joe Klein.
So it dawned on me, you know, this is stupid. If I get hurt here, I know there's no one gonna get near me because I'll freeze to death. It was that cold, and, you know, I just got buried in snow.
Are you serious? Unbelievable.
In addition to being stuck in the snow due to the winds and elevation, it's the drop in temperature that is a huge concern.
The wind up there can get up to 70 miles an hour, and it was that night. You absolutely couldn't see nothing for blowing snow. So I got back in the truck, and I I called the boss.
I tried to turn around. I tried to go back up the hill.
Told him my situation to see if he could get a truck up to assist. Yeah, after I talked to the boss, and the boss said he's gonna call for assistance, another truck to come up and see if both of us could get me out. Oh, it was probably 10 o'clock till Mike got on his way, and I was just watching the clock, and I thought, God, if he's coming, he should be coming here soon, you know, it shouldn't be that bad. So I give him a shout on the radio and said, how far are you? And he said, my God, I'm down at the bottom end. I can't make it around the first corner. It's socked in that bad. I said, really? I went through there. It was just starting to drift when I come through there.
The assistance that Joe desperately needed is still at the bottom of the mountain, unable to make the first turn up the highway.
And he says, completely blocked off. I can't get through. And he was getting stuck and getting himself out. So I thought, well, it's going to be a long one. The mountains and things are beautiful, but they can, I don't know if I can say that, kill you.
Well, we talk about significant snowfalls, the Wyoming event. When we look around the world, it's quite possible to get very, very intense snowfalls. Certain parts of Canada, we can see snowfall rates of 10, 15 centimeters in an hour. We've had snow squall events, lake effect snow events, that have dumped more than 70 or 80 centimeters in one event.
Alone in the snow, the cold, and the darkness. With only one bar left on his phone, Joe makes a call.
Joe, are you okay?
I called my wife. I was more concerned about her worrying about me. She was upset. She was worried. I said, I'll be all right. I'll be back when they get me out. I could hear she was pretty upset on the phone. I told her it'd be all right. Yeah, she was crying. I was just worried that the truck would stay running. It had to stay running because if in that conditions you shut them diesels off and they may not start. I didn't want to try to conserve that way, so I just left it run. I just bumped the idle up on the truck. I had to run it at 1500 just to keep warm in there. That's how strong and cold the wind was. My elevation is probably 8,500 where I was. The radio always works, but there's some areas in the mountains where we lose our main radio. And I had just far enough, I had one bar on my phone where I could talk to my wife occasionally and see how it's going. Well, there's a lot of chatter with the fellow that was stuck down below. He had to call another guy to bring the loader up to try to get him to come up further. It was just a long ordeal. When you're sitting up there waiting for someone, because I could see a corner down below me, waiting for lights to come around that corner. Well, when I heard that the guy that got called out behind me couldn't get up, then he called another guy to assist him. I pretty well knew it was going to be a long night. If they couldn't get there with what they had until they got bigger equipment in, it still would have been the next morning.
Joe now realizes he will be left alone on the mountain, 8,500 feet up, with severe wind and snow.
It was dark. You just sitting there with your lights flashing, and that's all you could see was snow, and I had water. I had like a half bottle of water, because when I left the house, I told the wife it should be like 3 hours, I should be back home. On a normal deal like that, it would have been, but that's just luck of the draw, I guess. I had the radio. Was keeping contact with the boss. There was just listening to chatter on the radio, you know. I still had a full tank of fuel, but I didn't know if it would run at that speed all night long.
And all night long, it was.
Well, it was 9 hours later. It's about 6:30 in the morning, and the right side of my truck was about buried in snow because the wind was coming in that direction. The driver's side was kind of clearer because it all blew away, you know. I was awfully glad to see lights coming around the corner. An old Army truck made into a tow truck, 6-wheel drive, and it took them a couple hours to get to me because they had it chained up and it was going, you know, they had to kind of make their own road coming up.
Hey, Joe, you okay?
No, when the tow truck finally got to me there, he jumped out, seen that I was okay first before anything, you know.
After nearly 9 hours alone in his truck, Joe was saved.
Well, they hooked the chain on me and got me squared away and let him out down the mountain. If the truck would have shut off for that, I don't know what I'd have done. Then the fear would have started. That many hours, I'm afraid it would have started getting in on me pretty good because it was cold even with the engine running. So I don't know if I would have had to wait them 9 hours, even with the clothing and boots and gloves and stuff I had. I don't know, it could have been ugly. The snow and the cold and the wind is a very powerful thing. More powerful than you think. Sometimes you maybe get that you feel invincible and you're not. It'll catch you.
To create cold weather events, we need to have air moving, usually from high latitudes, from the north in Canada, moving south, being carried relatively quickly so it doesn't have enough time to, in a sense, warm up, and then impacting on communities across Canada with what we call cold fronts, the front of that cold air just coming down across, and that's what causes the really impact of the cold events. We can also have longer-term events, but they're not usually accompanied by precipitation or wind, so the impacts are, in a sense, less.
So the dangers of being caught in extremely cold temperatures and also being caught in extremely cold wind chills is the damage it can do to the human body. If we're not dressed appropriately, if we don't have a good pair of mitts on, something covering our head, a good pair of boots, we're losing heat from the body. And if there's a wind, that's going to scour that heat off even more, going to make our body work harder and harder to stay warm. And it's the extremities that we first start to see the influences on because the body will shut down except for the core just to keep ourselves alive in those extreme cold situations. In terms of how quickly the human body is at risk from a frostbite situation, wind chill, again, a big factor in this. And for wind chills of about -30 or -40, we're talking about frostbite for exposed skin on the order of somewhere between 10 to 20 minutes. But as we get to extreme wind chills and extreme temperatures, -55 Celsius and colder, we're talking about less than 2 minutes for exposed flesh to freeze. Hypothermia, again, is the idea of the human body not being able to cope with the extreme cold. And what the human body starts to do then is basically shut down. When we talk about signs of hypothermia, signs of extreme cold on the human body, it's when we stop shivering, when we've actually gone to the point where the human body, again, one of its mechanisms to fight the cold is to shiver, to try to keep that warmth flowing in the body. When we start, when the shivering stops, basically, that's an indication that the body is starting to shut down, trying to keep that core temperature warm, but again, at the expense of our extremities.
Freezing. Blinding, disorienting.
It had those ingredients that intensified to a dangerous storm.
When blizzards strike,
I've never seen that much snow before.
They can have deadly consequences.
We ended up with 3 storms in one.
Nature was against us.
Yet in some places in the world, extreme winter conditions not only provide a safe haven for life.
Winter weather is very important to the ecosystems.
They help protect the planet.
Arctic sea ice is so important because it helps to moderate the global climate.
And as our climate changes, we may lose far more than we expect. Hurricanes, tsunamis, earthquakes.
This was the deadliest tornado on record.
The impact can be devastating.
God completely wiped it off the map.
We stepped inside the disaster.
We were running for our lives.
It was just like a freight train.
And unravel The unexpected and sometimes jaw-dropping total impact.
Believe it or not, some good can come from these monster storms.
After crossing the U.S., Winter Storm Jacob heads northward from the eastern seaboard towards Atlantic Canada. When it meets the frigid North Atlantic air, it will become a giant, a historic weather phenomenon with devastating and lasting impacts. For locals of St. John's, Newfoundland, the call for a snowstorm is a regular part of the winter forecast and nothing to worry about.
For us as Newfoundlanders, someone says there's a snowstorm, that's like Wednesday. It doesn't matter.
And we are in the middle of the Atlantic. This is a normal occurrence for us.
St. John's, Newfoundland is a small city on the east coast of Canada. Settled in the 1600s, it's home to colorful row houses, historic sites, and surrounded by nature, whale watching, and icebergs.
Well, we live here just outside of St. John's. It's a beautiful area, it's quiet, it's relaxing, lots of nature, and we enjoy it.
Its position along what's known as Iceberg Alley also means the area can expect lots of snow and wind. But for experts monitoring the approaching weather front, they can see the signs of a monster storm.
This storm deepened very rapidly as it moved off the U.S. eastern seaboard and really tapped into that temperature difference between the continent and the ocean, and in that environment with that strong temperature difference, it had those ingredients that it needed to really rapidly intensify into a dangerous storm.
But for many residents, they've heard this news before.
They were giving this storm a lot of hype, but then again, weather prediction is not 100%. I mean, we've had forecasts before where we were forecasted for a lot of snow, and we got nothing.
We kind of figured that it was going to be big, but we didn't realize how big it really was, how big it could get.
For Shondell and Kyle Snow, the impending storm is the last thing on their minds.
We found out we were expecting 4 weeks pregnant. We were pretty stoked about it right from the start.
With their first child due in less than 2 weeks, Shondell begins her maternity leave the day before the storm is expected to arrive.
As I was finishing up at work, everyone's like, you better not have the baby in that storm they're calling for. Like, you better, watch out for it. We both said kind of it'd be a little adventure. Kyle was born in a snowstorm in January, and so it seemed like it would be fitting.
As the first snowflakes begin to fall, the majority of St. John's residents have no idea what Mother Nature has in store.
We could see that the accumulation was getting heavier. The winds were starting to pick up. Approximately 4 o'clock that evening was when we were into the heaviest of it.
Everybody was on edge and knowing that there's something coming, right?
As the storm approaches, Shondell wakes up suddenly in the middle of the night.
So I'd had the contractions, but Kyle went on to sleep, and I was thinking I just didn't think it was actually going to happen yet. And so I was kind of I'm having some contractions, but I'm going to try to go to sleep. And then all of a sudden I was like, my water broke.
As they rush to the hospital, the snow begins to fall. They just have to hope they can make it before the snow turns into a blizzard.
It can become very quick with those type of snowfall amounts, and with those winds, it'd be very, very easy to become disoriented and lost if you're just looking at the driving conditions just being really just quite treacherous.
Seeing the conditions for a perfect storm coming, weather experts are on high alert.
So this was a case of one of these storms that really rapidly intensified into a very powerful storm as it moved south of Nova Scotia. It brought very significant snowfall, very, very strong northerly winds, and storm surge as well.
If this storm is anything like the blizzard that hit St. John's in 1959, it could be catastrophic.
The date's February 15th, 16th, 1959. A powerful blizzard brought 7-meter high snow drifts to the St. John's area and put about 70,000 people without power for a period during the peak.
With winds reaching up to 220 kilometers an hour, the storm dumped 55 centimeters of snow on the city. In the dead of the night, residents of The Battery, a steeply hilled neighborhood, described a sound louder than a clap of thunder. An avalanche had struck 2 houses, sweeping them downhill and killing 5 people. The survivors spent 12 terrifying hours buried alive until they could be dug out. 61 years later, an eerily similar storm threatens the area. Kyle and Shondell arrive at the hospital just as the storm slams into St. John's.
Usually when pregnant women go to the hospital and they're having like a contraction, they send them home. And then say when it gets worse or something happens, come back. Well, they weren't allowed to leave because it was a state of emergency. So you had pregnant women everywhere, and their families, and their partners, and their parents. And so it was either people sleeping on the floors, there was people sleeping in chairs, it was like very overcrowded, so.
While Kyle and Shondell are at the hospital, the Walls hunker down at home. But as the snow falls, their 26-year-old son, Joshua, has no interest in staying cooped up inside.
Josh was right from day one. He was a handful. He had to be the center of attention. He didn't want to stand out too much, but he wanted to be known. He was very outgoing, very lovable, very friendly, sociable.
Joshua had friends from all walks of life because he was raised. You don't judge, book from its cover. You love everybody.
But for Joshua, the severe weather reports create an overwhelming sense of stress.
He did suffer with anxiety, and that did play on him quite a bit. Very rarely would he let it show, but you could tell inside that he was struggling. Over the last few years, he has lost a lot of close friends, had passed away. All with the anxiety involved, it just kind of amplified his feelings, and he struggled dealing with it.
And knowing that the snowstorm was coming, he felt claustrophobic. He said, I'm 26 years old, Mom. He said, you can't protect me and hover over me forever. You can't keep me from going anywhere. And I said, yes, buddy, yes, I know. And he hugged me. And then he had me believe that he wasn't going nowhere.
Outside, the storm is dropping snow on Newfoundland at a record-breaking rate.
Some of the snowfall rates were 3 to 4 centimeters an hour. And during the peak time, got 10 centimeters an hour. That's a very significant shot of snow for that area in a short time.
As 911 calls pour in, emergency responders venture into the storm.
Chimneys blown over, power lines blown off poles, pole fires, alarm bells malfunctioning, systems. Anything you could have got thrown at you was thrown at us that day.
Even in the light of day, the visibility reaches 0.
When I was actually responding to calls, other than the trucks in front of me with lights on, I absolutely had no vision.
Authorities urge the public to stay indoors.
The main hazard that you would have with a blizzard would be the very, very poor visibilities that can be down at 0 at times with those strong winds and the heavy snow. And with that, it can be very easy to become disoriented and very easy to become lost.
But for Joshua, the prospect of staying home is too much to bear. Nora is beside herself when she realizes her son is missing.
She said, Wayne, he's gone. Nora did everything but sit on him to keep him here.
We never seen him slip past. I couldn't tell you if he went through the front door. I couldn't tell you if he went through the side door.
There was no footprints anywhere to be seen.
There was nowhere to go. There was nowhere to... Of course, we started to panic.
As the storm intensifies, the Walls face the terrifying reality that their son is now out in the blizzard. as a raging blizzard puts the city of St. John's, Newfoundland on lockdown. Wayne and Nora Wall are beside themselves when they realize their 26-year-old son Joshua has disappeared into the storm.
Real panic set in. Myself and my wife, we got dressed, we went through the door, we went up the road, and we got about 150 feet away from the house, and we were in complete whiteout conditions. We couldn't go anywhere, we couldn't see nothing. We almost got lost literally 150 feet away from the house. There was no footprints anywhere to be seen. Our footprints were getting covered in just as quick as we were stepping at them. I've never seen that much snow before. I really haven't. Literally, you couldn't see anything.
Blizzards are usually associated with very intense low-pressure systems, so a lot of times we'll need a very, very heavy snowfall as well as very strong winds. And then that will produce those very poor to near-zero visibilities, either in the falling snow or blowing snow or a combination of the two. Even if you did step outside your house, it'd be pretty quick to become quite disoriented and not see even where your house is, just over a short distance.
Forced to return home, the Walls are desperate to locate their missing son.
And when I called them, it went right to voicemail. I called again a few more times, and each time I went to voicemail. I sent them a text message. I got no responses on the text messages. Then I sent them a Facebook message. And I could tell by the indication that the Facebook message didn't deliver. So I got, then I got worried. I called the police, and I had told them that he had gone out into the storm. We can't reach him. I have no idea where he's to. I told him that I am worried because, you know, his anxiety is on bust.
Emergency calls soon overwhelm first responders.
People were getting snowbound, trapped in cars. We had some calls where people actually couldn't get their doors or their homes closed, looking for us to help them out in those situations.
The danger of the storm is made worse by sweeping power outages.
There are reported 35 power outages affecting just under 14,000 customers at different parts of the province.
Without backup generators, many resort to using fireplaces, gas stoves, and propane to stay warm.
So everybody was augmenting their system by propane inserts and wood stoves, and that was a big concern to us with carbon monoxide poisoning with the wood stoves and this. So anytime we get a call for alarm activation, we just thought the worst and hoping for the best. The general public didn't expect us to show up. It was that bad that they did not think, even if they called 911, that somebody would respond. And when we come to the door and the snow would be 8 feet over the roof, and we'd have to tunnel into the door to get to the person, when they looked at us, you could see the delight in their eyes that at least somebody showed up. We challenge ourselves every single day to get to a call as quick as we possibly can. When the storm really hit, it took us to a call that we would have been there in 6 minutes. It took us 45 minutes to get there.
By the afternoon, Shondell has been in labor for over 12 hours. Kyle's concern grows as he watches the blizzard outside.
In like the procedure room or the birthing room or whatever, there was huge windows, but it was just white. It's just pure white. It was the worst storm I've ever been in by far.
Kyle would every now and again be like, look outside. And I'd be like, holy. And then I'd be like, oh my goodness. And I'm like, okay. And then I would just go back to it. I just remember looking outside and not being able to see anything at all.
Kyle realizes he may have more than his wife and baby to be anxious about.
And so I decided to go downstairs and check on the weather. When I approached the front doors of the hospital, you could just hear the wind howling just through the entire building. And when I got to the hospital door and opened it up, I mean, it was half buried. The snow drifts are reaching up the walls of the hospital. It was eerie in every way. There's nobody around. Like it was like a ghost town. It was creepy almost.
While Kyle and Shondell focus on the imminent birth of their first child, the Walls hold on to hope that their son has found shelter from the storm.
We held out high hopes that he was caught in a cabin somewhere and couldn't get out.
Without shelter, the chances of surviving the storm are slim. In zero visibility conditions, many become disoriented. And as hypothermia sets in, body temperatures can drop lethally.
If one were to become disoriented or lost at that point when you're out with those very strong winds, temperatures are at the very least usually around freezing, if below, possibly getting down even colder. Being out in those conditions, hypothermia becomes a very big problem.
For first responders, the snow buildup and zero visibility make the roads nearly impassable.
The crews were getting snowbound, trucks couldn't move. We had to put snowplows in front of every station. Every pumper crew that moved, we had a snowplow in front of that pumper, clearing way to get us to the emergency. So,
with the roads blocked, the police can't reach the walls to search for Joshua. Wayne frantically thinks of other ways to locate his son.
I had realized that his phone was actually in my name, so I went back through the phone records just to see the last number in which he texted. I called that number. A young guy answered the phone and I asked if Josh was there. He said Josh was gonna come by, but he said he didn't show up. So I said, well, what were in the text messages? And one of the text messages indicated that he had sent a ping location to where he was to, and that he was lost.
Some panic has set in.
As a monster blizzard buries St. John's, Newfoundland, Kyle and Shondell finally welcomed their firstborn child into the world.
So I was in labor for quite some time.
21 hours.
21 hours. Levi was born at 10:41 p.m. in the height of the storm. I think the record was broken around the same time as when Levi was actually brought into the world.
Some parts of the city are buried under 93 centimeters of snow. The storm is what weather experts call a snow bomb.
Bombogenesis, it's kind of a term that's been more or less used amongst meteorologists, but it has gained a bit of steam out. Basically, a bombogenesis or a bomb cyclone is just a very rapidly intensifying storm.
As storms intensify, they expel more air than they ingest. That evacuation of air causes air pressure to drop. The lower the air pressure reading, the stronger the storm. The rate at which the air pressure falls is an indicator of how quickly the storm is intensifying. For a system to qualify as a bomb, its air pressure must plummet, decreasing by at least 24 millibars, the unit used to measure atmospheric pressure, in 24 hours. In addition to the dramatic drop in air pressure, strong winds create hurricane conditions.
The peak wind gusts with this system right across eastern Newfoundland range from around 100 kilometers an hour up to about 170 kilometers an hour. On that higher range, you're starting to get into Category 2 hurricane force wind gusts.
The winds did take a toll on the communication systems, electrical systems, siding blowing off houses. We did have a large roof blow off one of the commercial structures in the area, which did land on some of the houses. You get a lot of structural damage from the winds blowing materials off homes.
As the worst of the storm finally subsides, the search for Joshua begins.
I got up and I took off up through the backwoods. Snow in places was up to my waist. I didn't try to shovel myself out of it, just trying to make my way down the path just to see if he'd taken shelter somewhere. I made it about 1 kilometer down the path. It took me 2 hours to do that, and I was starting to get dehydrated. The shovel that I had broken, so the only thing that I could do was try and come back to the path that I had made. By the time I got back towards the house, I was met with search and rescue, and they pretty much took over from there.
We had the helicopters, we had the police dog, we had everything. And they couldn't even pick up on infrared because the snow was so deep. To contend with that kind of snow, we felt so helpless. Nature was against us.
While the search for Joshua goes on, with the city under a state of emergency, the military is called in to help. With a new baby in their arms, Shondell and Kyle find themselves trapped in the hospital.
We weren't allowed to leave the hospital without having somewhere to go and without being able to get there safely. And we had no idea what our house was like. We had no idea how much snow was there. So I put a post out on Facebook, actually, and just said, hey, does anyone live in this general area? Can you get some pictures? The door to the front of the house was buried. There was 6, 7, 8 feet of snow in front of the house.
Well, the Snows try to figure out how to get home. Record-breaking amounts of snow make the search for Joshua difficult.
Tuesday evening rolled around and they had told us that the search was suspended. There was just too much snow and the terrain was very hard. These search and rescue guys would come out of the woods and they would be extremely tired. They suspended it until we had a significant melt. When they left, myself and some of my close family members, we kind of just picked up where they left off. We asked for volunteers, and we were met with an overwhelming amount of help.
7 days after Joshua's disappearance, a volunteer makes a devastating discovery.
It was a little after 10 o'clock when my daughter came running to me with the phone in her hand. When I answered the phone, he was a firefighter from Avondale, and he said, I think I found him. I took off towards the marsh. And when I got up there, I got off Skidoo, and he looked at me. He said, just wait. I said, is it him? He said, just wait. He said, don't quit. And just looking at his face, listening to him talk, I mean, I knew what I was headed for. He was about 20 feet inside the tree line. That's where we found
The next day, reality sinks in for Wayne and Nora.
When we got up, we looked at each other and was like, there's no search today. There's no search today. He's not coming home. It was hard to come to terms with that, and sometimes there are days that I still think it's a bad dream. I'm still expecting myself just to wake up and say, what the hell was that? But it's not going to happen.
There's no words to describe the loss. They say it'll get easier with time. I just don't see it happen. Whenever it snows, I'm a mess. I used to love the snow, you know? He went from being an earth angel, that's what I called him, to a snow angel.
As the Walls mourn the loss of their son, Kyle and Shondell head home with their newborn to a house that's been buried by the blizzard.
Somebody said, let us know when you're going and we'll help you shovel out. And then I think it was 12 or 15 people from the community came down with shovels in hand and they helped dig us out.
It was very overwhelming. It's terrifying enough to bring home a newborn, but to bring a newborn home in all of that, it was a scary time for sure for us.
Through a harrowing ordeal, the community finds strength and bonds over their shared experience.
I think Newfoundlanders are versatile. They're used to adverse conditions. We have expertise that is far-reaching.
It put a whole other layer on becoming like first-time parents. We learned that we can get through just about anything. we have a silver lining from it all because we have Levi. But we definitely, there was something about Snowmageddon that there was this really positive feeling that came from it between people coming to help. And I mean, after that, the little Levi went viral, Newfoundland viral. So there was a feeling of positivity in all the madness for sure.
The thing that I think really hit me the most is that they had a smile on their face. As bad as it was, for some reason, people are more jovial and friendly to one another, right? And I think it's just the nature of Newfoundlander. I don't think there's anything the Lord above or Mother Nature can throw at us that we won't embrace somewhere along the line.
While extreme winter weather is a fight for survival for some, others thrive in extreme cold weather. Blinding blizzards, hurricane winds, deadly roads. Around the world, the cold in winter is often dreaded and feared. Freezing rain can encase houses, and blowing snow can down power lines. If you survive the battering trauma of an avalanche, suffocation usually happens within 15 minutes. And if you're caught in the cold, hypothermia can set in even faster. The cold kills 20 times as many people as hot weather. And northern Canada is no stranger to extreme cold.
Winter in the Yukon, it's really one of our longest seasons. It can last 5 months, and it can be dangerously cold at points in time. So, in fact, some of the coldest temperatures recorded in North America have been from around the southern Yukon. In 1947, they recorded a temperature of minus 62.5 degrees Celsius, which is pretty cold.
Yet for some, the perilous climate is simply a way of life.
Our people have been living in the far northwest Canada for thousands and thousands of years. Winter is not something to be feared, but rather something that our people have absolutely mastered. Overland travel can be easier in winter. Animal tracks are easily spotted and followed. Sound travels differently in the cold, making it easier to track animals. A fish net is set easily under the ice. Food harvested in the winter can be easily stored by freezing it.
The people's reliance on cold winter conditions is shared with the animals that live here.
Winter weather is actually very important to the ecosystems. We'll get these very big snowstorm events that are coupled with these extreme high wind events. And what will happen is all the snow that falls during the storm will be blown over to the north sides of the mountains, and these huge wind drifts will turn into ice patches. These snow drifts dot the landscape. There's hundreds of them in the southern Yukon.
In the winter months, animals like pika, lemmings, and grouse use the snowdrifts for shelter. The extreme winter conditions also shape the critical summer habitats of caribou and Dall's sheep.
In the summer, when caribou and sheep move up to their summer ranges, they'll stand on these snowdrifts to get away from these parasitic insects. So the area where the snow patches exist completely overlaps with the critical summer and fall habitat of caribou and sheep.
But global warming poses a significant threat to the environment, wildlife, and people of the North.
With increasingly longer and warmer summers, there's been this progressive melt of this permanent ice that on some mountains has been around for close to 10,000 years. When an ecosystem has formed around the development of permanent ice, then the animals in that habitat and the plants in that habitat have adapted to that ecological condition. So when you start to see these ice patches getting smaller and smaller, and perennial snow not lasting in the environment as long as it used to, then it creates this situation of uncertainty.
While a threat to those who live here, the retreating ice and thawing permafrost also reveals treasures preserved by the icy conditions.
There was a baby mammoth mummy that was found in Siberia where they are able to completely sequence 70% of the DNA that came out of that mammoth. Here in the Yukon, we have one horse bone that is about 750,000 years old, where we were able to sequence the DNA out of one bone that had been preserved in ice for almost 1 million years.
In the Yukon, glacial evidence shows that caribou and sheep have been using the snowdrifts for millennia.
While we were surveying this ice patch, we did find this hunting blind right there. So we got evidence of people setting up hunting in caribou habitat near ice patches designed to hide out from these very, very curious caribou who are going to come up and say hello to us.
Well, normal archaeology involves a lot of pretty heavy labor, but glacial archaeology is a little bit different. You basically just go up into the mountains and you walk around at the face of melting ice and pick up the artifacts that you find.
We found this section of a throwing dart sitting in the dung in this little meltwater channel. So I'm just gonna slowly pick this up and see what it looks like out of the dung.
These archaeological artifacts expose an intertwining of culture and nature that has survived for thousands of years.
This is a copper-tipped wooden foreshaft that's just melted out of the ice.
All the artifacts related to this very ancient hunting tradition are now falling out of the ice, but what's really interesting is we see this evidence of a very, very consistent and stable First Nation land use.
For the Champagne and Asiac First Nations, these artifacts link them to their long history.
This connection teaches us so much about who we are, where we come from. These findings also help our young people to be aware of their responsibility to take care of these lands so that it can really take care of us.
But as climate change continues, the fragile balance of the North is threatened.
The ecological conditions and the animal use has been stable for a very, very long time, and people have been basically engaging in a very, very long-standing tradition. And how this interacts with climate change is that when you see climatic conditions and ecological conditions change so rapidly, you have to wonder if we will be able to use these mountains consistently in the future.
Well, the future of Arctic cultures and animals depends on ferocious winter storms to sustain life. It is the existence of ice that stands between disaster, death, and surprising beauty. Hard, frigid, unforgiving. Ice ages have obliterated life on Earth since the beginning of time. But for the past 13 to 14 million years, ice cover in the North and South Poles have moderated the Earth's temperature to allow life to flourish and grow. Despite its fickle and fearsome existence, ice is an ample source of intrigue for its incredible physical properties and mysterious beauty.
I'm always amazed at the diversity and beauty of the ice environment around our planet. It's amazing to look out and see icebergs that make it look like a cityscape. It's marvelous that our planet is able to create these kinds of cold region phenomenon, and people enjoy them for the beauty of them.
Icebergs are shimmering behemoths with awe-inspiring colors and beauty.
You can see blue colors and clear colors and dark colors, and that all has to do with the impurities that are in the ice. So if there's very small impurities and not very many of them, you'll get a preferential scattering of light from them, which can cause these green colors or blue colors that you see from them. If they're very, very transparent, there's very few impurities in it. It looks like the light is just penetrating right through it.
Just like rocks, the color of ice can also carry valuable information about the Earth's climate.
You can get carbon pollution from around the world that is delivered to the Arctic as part of this oceanic and atmospheric circulation that goes on, and that can be deposited on the surface of glaciers and sea ice as black carbon, which also makes the ice look dark.
Behind each iceberg that traverses the world's oceans is the story of a violent and terrifying rupture from a glacier. Although glaciers appear monolithic and immovable, there is a vast network of a glacial phenomenon called ice streams lurking below the surface.
When you think about glaciers on land, one of the things that is not that evident to the public is that these masses of ice are in motion. They move to such an extent that we have an analog of what you would think of as a river inside a glacier. And so these are called ice streams. It's bounded on either side by ice that's moving very slowly or not at all, but inside the ice stream itself, it's moving very rapidly.
On average, glaciers move 25 centimeters per day, but it's possible for them to shift up to 30 meters.
What is causing it to move is that when you get meltwater on the surface of a glacier, you get something called a moulin. And a moulin is basically a hole in the glacier where fresh water can penetrate down to the base of the glacier. So you can imagine water going down several kilometers to the bedrock that's underneath. And then that water is under high pressure under there, and it's quite warm, so it stays in liquid phase, and it forms kind of a lubricant between the base of the ice and the bedrock below, and that causes the glaciers to slip much more effectively, therefore delivering more icebergs to the ocean.
Much like icebergs, whose mass is hidden underwater, other beautiful ice formations are created under the surface.
You can get things like brine icicles. When the brine is forming in the sea ice, it actually follows a branched structure very similar to a tree.
When sea ice freezes in the Arctic and Antarctic, the salt in the water separates from the water crystals to create a thick brine. This brine cracks the sea ice and seeps into the water below. It's so cold, the water around it freezes, forming a falling finger of ice. Brinicles can travel all the way to the ocean floor, instantly freezing every sea creature in their path, leaving a remarkable, deadly ice column suspended in water. But there can be a delicate, natural beauty to briny ice as well.
A similar kind of phenomenon happens over sea ice, and those are called frost flowers. And so in a frost flower, you sublimate the surface, which means you go from this solid phase up to a vapor phase, and then the vapor phase freezes, forming a very delicate flower on the surface of the ice. We call these salt flowers or frost flowers.
In the Arctic, air is so dry that as spring temperatures increase, the ice surface can go from a solid state to a vapor state, completely bypassing the liquid phase. The result, the flowers flourish, forming ethereal ice meadows. As these flowers grow, they capture salt and marine bacteria, creating an excellent home for microbes. And while these beautiful frost flowers are home to a rich bioculture, they also release atmospheric aerosol, which may be involved with the depletion of ozone in the lower atmosphere.
These things are very reactive with the climate. They form very complex chemical reactions that are related to the ozone layer of our planet. And so how the ozone layer is maintained and protects us from ultraviolet radiation is connected to these very brine-rich forms of frost flowers on the ice surface.
Ice and snow can be both beautiful and deadly. But it also anchors the Earth's climate and keeps our existence on this planet from utter devastation. Blizzards, snow, ice. While the extreme cold can be deadly, living without it could be far worse. As global warming increases, it's affecting the North at an unprecedented rate. a process that is accelerating climate change and unpredictable and severe weather around the world. Dustin is a physical scientist and studies firsthand the effects of a changing climate in the north.
Arctic sea ice is so important because it helps to moderate and cool the polar regions. It helps to moderate the global climate. The ice acts as a reflector, and it's able to reflect up to 80% of the sun's energy. If that ice were to go away, this energy becomes absorbed into the ocean, which can increase the ocean temperature and the global climate. So right now, in the winter, the Beaufort Sea, much of the Arctic is frozen solid. And throughout the season, as we get into June and July, the ice melts and goes away. But now we're seeing this happen earlier and earlier and earlier. So the breakup of ice actually today happens 10 days earlier than it did 20 years ago.
The result is a warming of the oceans, which in turn can affect weather patterns globally, changing when, where, and how severe cyclones occur around the world.
It is well known that in the Arctic, the loss of sea ice causes more coastal storms, and the rapid loss of sea ice over time has increased more storms over time. And that's why we're seeing more erosion now along the Arctic coastline than we've ever seen before.
Arctic coastlines around the world are eroding between 1 and 1.5 meters a year.
The most surprising discovery when analyzing the coast and looking at coastal erosion, it really has to be how fast it happens. How just one storm can cause so much damage. We can see huge blocks fall, the sizes of small houses. In the community of Tuk, we see, over 2 meters of erosion from just one storm.
In the tiny community of Tuktoyaktuk, erosion is drastically changing the lives of residents.
We see the loss of buildings, we see the loss of infrastructure, roads, and people's homes. The town has been forced to move several homes. The RCMP detachment was relocated, as well as the school. It's the loss of communities, it's the loss of habitat, important species habitat, like from the polar bear.
As rising temperatures melt sea ice, permafrost is also disappearing at an alarming rate.
Permafrost is ground that has been permanently frozen for 2 years or more. It encompasses almost 25% of the landmass in the Northern Hemisphere.
Some 1,400 gigatons of carbon are estimated to be locked away in the permafrost. As permafrost melts, carbon is being released, adding to the effect on climate change.
The loss of Arctic permafrost has greatly impacted wildlife as well by reducing the amount of habitat along the coast, but also by changing the nearshore ecosystem with the increased amount of sediment that is now being eroded into the water column.
On the uninhabited Pelly Island in the Beaufort Sea, the fastest rate of coastal erosion in the world is ripping away the land at an extraordinary rate.
The erosion on Pelly Island can be double to triple the erosion rates that we're seeing in other areas. Why Pelly Island is eroding so much faster than the surrounding area is, one, because of its location. It's located right at the impact zone of the strong Beaufort Sea waves. To its size, it is fronted by a very large 30-meter cliff of ice-rich sand, clay, and silt. So as the waves undercut the island, 15 years ago, we would see rates of 10 to 15 meters a year. Now we're seeing rates of 30 to 40 meters a year. And the reason why it's doubled is directly related to climate change. In 50 years, I suspect that much of the coast as we see today will look quite different. Probably islands like Pelly or Tuktoyaktuk Island may be gone.
Scientists predict the effects will soon creep southward.
What's happening in the Arctic will eventually happen in other spots, as the ice that exists there now may not exist there in the future.
As the total impact of the loss of our extreme cold in the north is set to be felt around the globe, storms like the blizzard in St. John's, Newfoundland will continue to increase, both in frequency and ferocity. The future of the North is intertwined with the survival of life on this planet. What affects the Arctic weather reverberates around the world with more devastating blizzards, snow, and ice. And to ignore the marching drums of time is to hasten an unknown future.